Ladies and gentlemen, this particular story is complicated for a lot of reasons. First and foremost, because it involves the police. I've been making an argument as far as like the defunding the police, how I feel like that's a bad idea. It's a bad mantra and a lot of other things for a lot of reasons. But I also believe in calling out the bad ones, especially when it comes to not only our community, but when it comes to the people in blue. When they talk about that blue wall, we also believe that the police need to call out the ones that are bad, because not everybody's good. So if you do have some bad apples, some bad seeds, or whatever you want to call it, you got to call it out. And that's going to be the case with this story. So I'm going to say some things that are not going to sit well with your sensibilities. And also the story is going to have some details that might upset you. So if you can't handle that, I understand if you need to exit the video. For everybody else who understands what we do, here we go. A district attorney in Pennsylvania held a press conference on Monday afternoon to provide an update on the recent triple murder suicide. So for those who have not heard about this story, if this is your first time, this story is crazy because they were initially looking for the children. They were looking for that man, ex-police officer. And I have to reiterate that he's not a current officer. He's an ex-police officer. Okay? So this story is going to get really, really crazy, really, really quick. But they want to provide an update on the recent triple murder suicide involving a former Maryland police officer. And they call him a cop, but I talked to Lee, so we talked about this, that I'm not going to refer to the cops. I'm not going to refer to them intentionally as cops. I'm going to refer to them as police officers. York County District Attorney Dave Sunday called the incident a horrific chain of events during a press conference on Monday afternoon, where pain was a recurring theme and a specific term repeated used to describe the aftermath of the bloodshed. So this story did not have a happy ending, even though that's what we were hoping for. We offer our deepest condolences to the family, friends, and co-workers of those directly and indirectly impacted by this tragedy, according to the DA. This was a selfish and senseless act of violence that has shaken each and every one of us to the core. Ex-Baltimore County Police Department BCPD officer Robert Vacosa. Let me see if I can get this this ex-police officer on the screen. We'll get to the lady here in a minute. I'll tell y'all who she is. But for now, let's focus on this dummy. Robert Vacosa is 42 years old, and he kidnapped his two daughters early last week, setting off a multi-day, multi-state manhunt. Kidnapped his own children. By Thursday, they were all dead, along with a woman who was presumed to be the kidnapper's female accomplice. We're going to talk about her here in a little bit. The former member of law enforcement was found fatally shot inside an SUV, along with Amina Vacosa, who was 6 years old, those princesses over there. Gianna Vacosa, who's 7 years old. Let me see if I can get a solo picture of the babies. I know I have one. Right here. Here's what I will never understand. No matter what a person is going through, your struggles, your strife, marital issues, maybe you're mad with the police, maybe you're mad with God, maybe you're mad with the destination that your soul is going to be condemned to, I don't know. But one thing that the AFC and me will never ever accept is taking your personal issues out on children. Y'all look at these babies. These babies didn't deserve this at all. Beautiful little princesses. All children need to be protected. Every single one. This was absolutely unacceptable, and we will never understand this type of stuff. There was also a person that was found fatally shot as suspended 35-year-old BCPD Sergeant Tina Bynum. Two police officers. How do you get to this point? How are two ex-police officers involved in this story. She was a BCPD sergeant on top of that in the Old Line State of November 19th after giving chase to Pennsylvania State Police and then Maryland State Police following an attempted traffic stop. Authorities believe that Vacosa, the dad, shot and killed everyone as the car was moving and then turned the gun on himself. This is so confusing. Why was she involved? Why was she shot? Why are they calling her a suspect? All of this is so... And I'm assuming she's not the mom of these girls. I'm going to merely assume that. She's not the mother of those kids. Vacosa, who was a 17-year veteran of the BCPD, was demoted before being fired in August for sleeping on the job. Boy, can we stop there for a moment? How many of you guys have ever fallen asleep while being on the clock? I'm guilty of doing that at many jobs that I'm not going to admit to on camera. Not going to tell which jobs, but there were many jobs that I had. I was tired, went to sleep, maybe in the bathroom, maybe while sitting at my desk, maybe when I was supposed to be at work, but it happens. It happens. We need to focus on getting rest because it's also important to our health. You do know that you could actually die from not getting proper sleep. I don't know if many of you guys know that or not, but it's a real bad thing, okay? But nonetheless, you can't do that. Sleeping on the job, insubordination, and conduct unbecoming of an officer. Why would they not be more specific? Maybe for legal ramifications? I don't know. But I would like to know what the hell this fool was doing when they say conduct unbecoming of a police officer. Be transparent about that type of stuff. Because if any regular citizen was doing stuff like this, we would know every detail and we would be able to explore every nook and cranny. But when it comes to the police, not so much so. A little bit more vague. Sunday, there was a tremendous amount of pain for everybody impacted by the Vacosa case, including state authorities who had worked on the investigation before, during, and after the shooting deaths. The prosecutor said he has added the responsibility and duty of making efforts to minimize the likelihood that such incidents don't happen within the York County community in the future. We must vehemently and aggressively attack the scourge of domestic violence, which is way too prevalent within our community. Many homicides that have taken place over the years in York County began as incidents of domestic violence. So again, they're not giving us a lot of information. Did he have a girlfriend? Did he have a wife? Did he just beat up the mom for no reason? Did she make him mad? Why don't we know any of these details? That stuff is kind of important. But I tend to think he probably whooped his baby mama's ass. They got into some type of verbal disagreement, child support or whatever it is, and he took the girls and was going to take it out on them because he was mad at the mom. That's what I'm going to have to assume. At its origins, this horrific chain of events began as domestic violence. Like again, they didn't really specify. Past studies indicate that police officer families experience domestic violence well above the national average, so they're more prone to shit happening at home. Generally, domestic violence occurs in 1 out of every 10 U.S. family units. Some studies place domestic violence within law enforcement families as roughly 3 times the national average, while other studies from early 90s placed the number at 40% or 4 times the national average. In assessing what could have been done to avert this particular tragedy, the DA Sunday referenced an alleged misstep by local authorities related to a protective order filed by Vacosa's estranged wife. So he was married. She tried to file a protection order in the days immediately preceding the kidnapping and murders. Did the justice system fail? Did the police fail to do their job against one of their own, or who used to be one of their own? An individual filed a private criminal complaint on November the 14th against the chief of police of the York Area Regional Police Department, the DA noted. This private complaint generally concerns the execution of emergency PFA, personal, whatever that is. Let me see. PFA stands for Protection from Abuse Order. Okay. Now, according to the York Daily Record, which we're getting this from lawandcrime.com for the article, complaints name York Area Regional Police Chief Tim Damon. In his limited comments, DA Sunday said that I'm sorry, hold on, let me pause. I'm getting hella tongue-tied because I keep thinking they're talking about Sunday as the date rather than the district attorney. That's his name. So my bad. Let's try that again. In his limited comments, DA Sunday said that because he and his members of the office had heard material statements related to the complaint, the matter was handed over to a Pennsylvania Attorney General's office who accepted jurisdiction to investigate the complaint. The record reports that the emergency order, protection order issued by a judge was not served by police. My husband and his friend held me at gunpoint and tied me up in the basement, the ex-cop's estranged wife wrote. He told me he would kill me and our children if my family or police were to arrive to the house. So she was already in danger. Bynum was even interviewed by York Area Regional Police Department officers last Monday because Vacosa's phone was traced to her residence. Nearly 19 hours later, the warrant was finally executed and police tried to execute a temporary protection order issued by a different judge, but by then, Vacosa, Bynum, and their victims were long gone. Bynum was suspended Wednesday as the investigation spiraled. There is evil in this world, the DA added, and on even the best days and circumstances, law enforcement cannot prevent every instance of evil or thwart every plan. 4 guns and 4 dead bodies were found inside the SUV after it crashed into a fence just across the Pennsylvania-Maryland state border, smoke billowing from and filling the vehicle's interior. Why they wrote that like that, I don't know. Let me give you guys the fair usage. Then I want you guys to give me your opinion about this story, okay? Let's get it. Federal law allows citizens to reproduce, distribute, or exhibit portions of copyrighted motion pictures, videotapes, or video discs under certain circumstances without the authorization of the copyright holder. This is called fair use. It is allowed for purposes of criticism, news reporting, teaching, and parody, which doesn't infringe of copyright under 17 U.S.C. 107. And if you guys are watching this news video, do me a favor and make sure you guys hit that thumbs up to share this story so more people can come see and hear about this, okay? Let's get it.
Well, another very disturbing story. Right now, police are trying to find 2 young girls who were taken by their father, a former Baltimore County police officer. That abduction happened in Pennsylvania, and we have been working every angle of this story today in that state, as well as ours. WJZ investigator Mike Helgren live right now in York, Pennsylvania, with the desperate search for these children tonight. Mike?
Missing children. A former Baltimore County police officer is on the run, armed and dangerous.
Pennsylvania police say he kidnapped his young daughters and he may have help avoiding capture.
Hello again, I'm Lynn Bowie.
And I'm Tim Williams. We want to welcome all of you this noon streaming us.
It's a story we first brought you as breaking news last night at 5 o'clock, and WJZ stays on it this noon.
Right now, the children and their father are still missing, and there are many new developments.
WJZ has been in York, Pennsylvania all morning. Investigator Mike Helgren with details just released from police. Mike.
Let's get right to it. Tim and Lynn, authorities believe the ex-cop accused in this abduction may now be with a friend who is a current Baltimore County police sergeant. She has vanished, they say, and WJZ has learned she has been suspended now from the Baltimore County Police Department, and her police powers have been revoked. An urgent manhunt. Police are searching for two little girls believed to be in extreme danger and taken by their father, Robert Vicosa, a former Baltimore County police officer. Vicosa went on the run after assaulting the girl's mother, his estranged wife, at the family home in Windsor Township near York, Pennsylvania.
She was there for over 24 hours, possibly more. She reported this to us that there were guns involved, multiple guns, multiple calibers, long rifles and handguns.
Police tell WJZ Vicosa may now be with Tia Bynum, who sources say is a Baltimore County police sergeant. His phone pinged at her home.
Investigators immediately, they go to Tia's house. She's there. They talk to her. She was, we would say, less than forthcoming with all the information that we needed.
The missing girl's mother relayed this message through police.
I am so grateful for all of the friends, family, law enforcement, and even strangers for their support and prayers. I am anxiously awaiting their return.
Investigators also searched Sergeant Bynum's home. They believe Vicosa may now be traveling in her Lexus GS sedan. Investigators say Vicosa is armed and dangerous. He already ditched this gray Volkswagen, which police say he took from a woman at gunpoint. They pleaded with him to give up his daughters safely.
Do the right thing, Robert. Bring them back. I gave their mother my personal cell phone number. I can let her know within seconds that they're safe. Do the right thing.
Authorities say this did not meet the criteria of an Amber Alert, but they are working closely with federal law enforcement and Baltimore County Police. He could.
Missing children. A former Baltimore.
Thank you. That takes us now to Annie Rose Ramos. She is in Smithsburg, Washington County, where that car is. Annie Rose.
Well, Denise, if you look behind me, my photographer Tristan is going to zoom in. This is what we can see so far. That a Ford.
We got people in the chat asking, like, was she actually like a cop at the time? I'm not really sure. It sounds like she was. Why would she participate in this is like even more confusing. Like was she somehow romantically involved? That's the proper terminology. Was she romantically involved with this man who was estranged from his wife? Why would she help him in any shape, form, or fashion is beyond me. And then you guys heard that she also lied. Or at least they say she wasn't forthcoming. To me, that's just as good as lying, even though we might not call it lying. But it's like lying.
Thank you. That takes us now to Annie Rose Ramos. She is in Smithsburg, Washington County, where that car is. Annie Rose.
Well, Denise, if you look behind me, my photographer Tristan is going to zoom in. This is what we can see so far, that a Ford gray car vehicle is now underneath a tarp around all of this police presence here in Smithsburg off Ringgold Pike. Now, we arrived here about an hour ago. That is when there were dozens of state troopers. There were dozens of folks here on the scene, law enforcement on the scene, trying to get closer to this car that you can see underneath the tarp. We understand that Robert Vicosa and Tia Bynum were last seen in a gray Ford Edge that they stole from Cockeysville. That is what we understand is the vehicle underneath this tarp here in Smithsburg. We cannot see whether or not it's a Ford Edge, but we do see the Ford emblem on this car, and it has been, Denise, relatively calm scene since the past 30 minutes ago. We saw that the K9 units did arrive here with the dogs. They are now around here in the scene. We've seen them, heard them barking behind me, but as far as in the last 30 minutes, it's been a relatively calm scene. You heard Mike Helgren there say that we do understand from authorities that Vicosa is deceased, but we haven't seen much else here. We haven't seen no ambulances, no fire trucks. So far, we understand that there are just sort of state police troopers and those K9 units that we can see from our eyes being right here behind the caution tapes on this road. Denise?
All right, thank you. Thank you, Annie Rose. So we know that Vicosa has been shot and is dead. The last we know about these two children is that they were alive last night when that carjacking took place in Cockeysville.
Yes, most definitely. Let's go now to Jessica Albert. She spoke to the man who Vicosa carjacked. Of course, that vehicle matching the description of the one that is right now in Smithsburg. Jessica.
Denise and Vic, I did talk to that alleged carjacking victim earlier today. He is doing okay tonight, and he is under police protection. He wasn't able to talk to me long, but I was able to get from him or ask him what led up to this carjacking that happened yesterday. Police say this all happened yesterday afternoon in Cockeysville. They say Robert Vacosa and Tia Bynum had a gun with them and forced the victim to drive them to several places in the Baltimore area. The victim tells me Vacosa's daughters were...
What happened to my audio?
Getting my bags and stuff out around 1. I got off of work. Dropped my boss off, and then I came home. That was around 1 something. I was getting my bags and stuff out the cars. I always look around.
And he cut off right there because police did tell him to stop speaking with me at that point. Now, we are not identifying the victim right now because he is under police protection, but as soon as we can, we will.
And WJZ continuing to dig deeper into the tragic end to a manhunt in western Maryland.
That's where police believe a former Baltimore County officer shot his 2 young daughters, his accomplice, and then himself. WJZ investigator Mike Kellgren is live at Maryland State Police Barracks, where he's been working to get answers on how this unfolded. Mike.
But you know what? This isn't necessarily like a thing that's just this story. We talk about this narrative all the time where, like, even like with the Anaya Garrett story, you guys heard about that out of Cuyahoga County? The story that really started my advocacy for the children, which is where that starts. You can go back and go look at that video. But even in that case, the mom simply wanted to hurt the dad, and she didn't want to give up custody of her kid, so her and her boyfriend murdered Anaya Garrett. So we've seen where mothers have done it. We've seen where fathers have done it. This is almost like, it's damn near like 50-50 how often this happened between a mom and a boyfriend during this, or a dad and a girlfriend. If y'all think about it, we've been almost 50-50 throughout the entire year of reporting stories just like this. Think about that for a moment.
Vic, Denise, Maryland State Police is the lead investigating agency, and they tell us that this all came to an abrupt and violent end shortly after Pennsylvania State Police turned on their sirens.
What happened, where, and how it all fits together.
In their ongoing...
And to answer your question, did he have custody? This is what I'm saying. Because this is kind of a sensitive matter, especially with the police, and I'd like to welcome you guys who are listening. Thank y'all for being here. Yes, we are live right now. So if you're watching this on the replay, that'd be one thing, but right now we're live. But they're not releasing a lot of information, and one of those key points, did he have custody? You know, what were they fighting over? Why did he decide to kidnap the kids? Why did he threaten to kill the mom? What did the other police officer have to do with this? Was he romantically involved with her? Why did she risk her life, throw away her life and her career for this man? And why did he feel the need to end it this way? A lot of stuff we still don't know. We can speculate, and I think it's very simple. I just think the fact that it could have been something as simple as child support. I'm going to throw that out there again. And alimony. Because you guys know, I'm not sure if y'all are familiar, but police officers they're not balling like that. They don't do the job for the salary. That's not a job that pays you a ton of money, right? Hopefully everybody understands that. That's why I think it's also even more inflammatory when you talk about defunding the police, which is going to cause them to lose even more funding, lose more money, and can't hire more police officers to do the job at the rate it's already at. I think they need to be getting paid more, not less. And when you're getting paid the amount that you're getting paid, you sign up for the job, you do the job. But whenever they get to taking that alimony and child support out, we've actually seen even different races. We've seen white men. We've seen white police officers. We've seen Mexican police officers end up turning the gun either on themselves or their kids or their entire family. Have we not? I know we had one out here in Texas recently. I think either last year or this year. It will break people. It's a horrible thing when us as mothers and fathers, husbands and wives can't just work this out together, amicably. That's why I think this sucks. because you're playing with people's emotions and playing with people's money. And I'm sorry, that's a deadly combination. And it could cost you everything rather than just taking the high road, being the bigger person. This is where we learn the lesson. So if y'all are wondering what lesson you could learn that lesson right here. And just say, you know what? I'm not going to make you suffer financially, and I'm not going to make you suffer emotionally. I'm going to let you do what you do. It didn't work out between us. Now let's put the children as the priority, and let's take care of our babies. Because our F up, our screw up shouldn't affect them to that extent.
Investigation. Maryland State Police now believe they know who likely fired the shots that killed 6- and 7-year-old sisters Gianna and Amina Vicosa, their father.
At this point, our investigators believe that the suspected shooter was Vicosa. However, that has to be confirmed pending the autopsy results.
The manhunt for Robert Vicosa, an officer recently fired from the Baltimore County Police Department, stretched for 4 days as authorities tracked him from York, Pennsylvania to Baltimore County to where it all ended, in Smithsburg in western Maryland Thursday afternoon. Shortly after, Pennsylvania State Police, who were pursuing the carjacked SUV, activated their lights and sirens.
Investigators believe that it was less than 30 seconds after police activated their emergency equipment before that vehicle veered off the road into oncoming traffic, up an embankment, nearly missing several parked cars, and into the bushes in that fence line. They believe the shooting occurred while that vehicle was moving, and it was clear to the investigators that the driver had not made any maneuvers to avoid oncoming traffic. They didn't brake.
He might have already shot himself by that point. I think he committed suicide. I think he shot himself.
There were no signs of brake lights on the vehicle, so all of those are indicators to...
And yes, I think that he was very selfish. Everybody involved, no disrespect to the mom, but I think every adult that's involved in this story, even if it's a victim, were selfish because they did not put the children first. If everybody thought about the children first, I don't think we get to this point. Some people might be mad about what I just said, but remember, that's why we're speaking as the AFC. And a lot of us, and not everybody in my chat agrees with me. Y'all can think what y'all want and post what you like as far as your opinion. But I personally think this doesn't happen if everybody puts the children as the #1 priority, and screw your feelings, get out your feelings and your thoughts and your financials. Do what you got to do for your damn kids.
Investigators that the shooting occurred while that vehicle was in motion.
Maryland State Police believe Vicosa was in the back seat with his daughters and say his friend and accomplice, Tia Bynum, a sergeant with the Baltimore County Police Department, was driving.
Investigators are really looking into the motive behind this shooting.
We can also report that there were 4 weapons found inside that vehicle, including an assault rifle in the back seat.
Thank you, Marie. Well, our other big story we are on top of tonight, WJZ continuing to dig deeper into the tragic end to that manhunt in Western.
This is where they're going to start to dig into his record. So you guys might want to brace yourself for this. Here we go.
Maryland. That is where police believe a former Baltimore County police officer shot his 2 little girls and his accomplice and then himself. Investigator Mike Hogan stays on the story for us tonight with more on what he has learned tonight. Hey, Mike.
Hi, Nicole. They were all riding in a carjacked SUV, and Pennsylvania State Police were in pursuit. We have learned tonight that when Pennsylvania State Police put on their lights and sirens, that's when Vicosa opened fire and shot everyone inside that vehicle.
What happened, where, and how it all fits together.
In their ongoing investigation, Maryland State Police now believe they know who likely fired the shots that killed 6- and 7-year-old sisters Gianna and Amina Vicosa, their father.
At this point, our investigators believe that the suspected shooter was Vicosa. However, that has to be confirmed pending the autopsy results.
The manhunt for Robert Vicosa, an officer recently fired from the Baltimore County Police Department, stretched for 4 days as authorities tracked him from York, Pennsylvania to Baltimore County to where it all ended, in Smithsburg in western Maryland Thursday afternoon. Shortly after, Pennsylvania State Police, who were pursuing the carjacked SUV, activated their lights and sirens.
Investigators believe that it was less than 30 seconds after police activated their emergency equipment before that vehicle veered off the road into oncoming traffic, up an embankment, nearly missing several parked cars, and into the bushes in that fence line. They believe the shooting occurred while that vehicle was moving, and it was clear to the investigators that the driver had not made any maneuvers to avoid oncoming traffic. They didn't brake. There were no signs of brake lights on the vehicle. So all of those are indicators to investigators that the shooting occurred while that vehicle was in motion.
Maryland State Police believe Vicosa was in the back seat with his daughters.
I don't see how the hell you could do that to your own kids. These little girls was probably screaming, hollering, and crying and scared. You did it anyway. I don't see how you're that damn cold-hearted.
And say his friend and accomplice, Tia Bynum, a sergeant with the Baltimore County Police Department, was driving.
Investigators are really looking into the motive behind this shooting.
And we have also learned there were 4 weapons inside that vehicle, including an assault rifle in the back seat. Now, WJZ continues our coverage with Paul Gessler. He's live at Baltimore County Police Headquarters, and he's been looking into the internal affairs documents relating to Vicosa and Bynum. Paul, what have you found?
Well, Mike, the department's legal section here in Towson prepared a summary of Vicosa's disciplinary record. It doesn't show who may have gone to bat for him when the department recommended more than 2 years ago to fire him, and the trial board decided not to.
Before the alleged assault, kidnapping, and manhunt, Robert Vicosa spent years wearing a Baltimore County police badge. The department's Internal Affairs section, or IAS, shows 5 cases in a 13-year span.
The first 2 IAS cases, Robert Brown, who later changed his name to Vicosa, failed to appear in district court in 2007 and 2008. He received a written reprimand and was later disciplined with a 1-day loss of leave.
WJZ obtained Vicosa's disciplinary record. A new Maryland law passed this year now makes police disciplinary files public. Anton's law went into effect October 1st. 11 years passed without another internal affairs case until 2019. After being promoted to sergeant, a trial board found Vicosa guilty of 5 sexual harassment allegations against 3 female subordinates.
Let me rewind it. Let me let y'all hear that part again.
Harassment allegations against 3 female subordinates.
Let's hear that again.
Guilty of 5 sexual harassment allegations against
5 sexual harassment allegations. Guilty.
Guilty of 5 sexual harassment allegations against 3 female subordinates. The department recommended firing him. Instead, the trial board demoted him back to officer and took away leave.
Police department
kept him on the force after that. That is a lot of leniency, don't you think? Because that type of behavior, you have to think about this man having issues with his wife and has kids. Is firing them the solution? No, I think the problem is much deeper than that. That man either needed some help or something. I don't know, but I just don't agree with keeping him on the job. That's not going to make him any better. Maybe they thought they could watch him. Maybe they thought he would straighten up. Maybe they thought that might be an incentive for him to get his shit together. I don't get that. I don't understand. Do y'all think, for the people who are listening right now, again, if y'all are listening, please do me a favor and click that thumbs up. What do y'all think? Should he have been fired for what he was found guilty of? Should he have been demoted or should he have been fired? Got kicked off as a cop because you're expecting, police officer, but you're expecting for them to at least abide by the law, especially when they're supposed to be the ones who are holding us accountable for the law, don't you think? So yes, I think there is an elevated level of responsibility that the police and judges and those who are in law enforcement have above normal citizens. That's the reason for the damn job.
Know how difficult it is to fire an officer.
Criminologist Dr. Jeffrey Ian Ross says contracts make it tough to fire officers. In March of this year, records show Officer Vicosa was accused of sleeping on duty and insubordination. The trial board again found him guilty, and this time he was fired in August.
Those incidents and what's happened.
So they fired him. Listen to this. They fired him for sleeping on the job in insubordination, but they kept him on the job after sexual, what was it? What they say, sexual harassment? Let me see if I can find it.
Guilty of 5 sexual harassment allegations against...
Guilty of 5 sexual... I don't know why I can't remember that. Sexual harassment. So I want y'all to think about this. We live in this Me Too world, and we have all of this protection for women, but it seems like it only applies to like celebrities. Isn't that what it sounds like? So we could hold everybody else accountable for, we could go back and try to hold Bill Cosby guilty of something he did 78 years ago before they even had televisions. But you can't hold a current police officer accountable for sexual harassment in 2021 or 2020, whenever this happened. I would assume it happened within the past 5 years, I would assume. So you don't get fired for that, but you get fired for sleeping on the job.
Officers. In March of this year, records show Officer Vicosa was accused of sleeping on duty and insubordination. The trial board again found him guilty, and this time he was fired in August.
Those incidents and what's happened over the last few years, and I think those incidents that happened.
Yes, 78 years ago, because Bill Cosby is about what? He's like 113 years old. Isn't that about right? I think he's about 113 at least.
Over the last few years were red flagged, and I'd be curious to know what kind of additional scrutiny he was put under during the last 2 years.
Back live now, we also have a summary of Tia Bynum's disciplinary file. She's Vicosa's alleged accomplice. She died yesterday as well. She has one case involving a police car crash in 2013. We're live in Towson tonight. I'm Paul Gessler for WJZ.
We're learning more about the disciplinary actions against Robert Vicosa and Tia Bynum during their time with the Baltimore County Police Force. The department says Vicosa, who used to go by Robert Brown, was reprimanded several times beginning in 2007, about 3 years after he got hired. He got in trouble for failing to show up for court, and it says the same thing happened the next year. Then in June of 2019, a trial board made up of members of the police department found him guilty of allegations related to improper conduct with female subordinates. He was demoted 2 ranks. In March of this year, the department says an investigation found he was sleeping on the job and refusing to perform his duties. Shortly after that, he was fired. In Tia Bynum's 14 years with the Baltimore County Police Department, the department says she was disciplined once before. It says in 2013, she crashed her vehicle that belonged to the department into a tree while responding to a call. Caitlin Smith, WGAL News 8.
How the hell do you do that? I'm pretty sure she didn't have a good explanation, which is why they got her for that disciplinary thing. But she relatively didn't have anything on her record. But that's what I'm saying. What I don't understand is what was her place in this? Was she this man's concubine, or was she just his ride or die? Like, did she feel pressured? You know, did he have some type of information against her that he could have blackmailed her? I don't know. I'm just throwing some things out there. I don't know. But the fact that this man, that bothers me. The fact that this man was found guilty. It wasn't like he was just accused. He was found guilty of 5 sexual harassment charges as a police officer. That is egregious in itself. Because a lot of times you have to think you're dealing with criminals, so the last damn thing you could be doing is doing criminalistic stuff. Don't y'all agree? Think about this. Those are the same type of police officers that have to be out there catching these prostitutes on the stroll, on the corner, doing something strange for a little change, right? Putting on that skirt and going to work, right? Getting on the chase for a big face, right? The same police officers that you're expecting for them to behave appropriately, whether they got those body cams or not. How do you think he was out there handling prostitutes if he can't even handle dealing with his own subordinates in a sexual manner or sexual words or sexual conduct? And you keep him on the force. Why? So he can continue to keep doing that stuff to people who are below him. You didn't change the behavior. You didn't give him training to be any different. He didn't learn a lesson from that. What did he do? He got worse. Isn't that the way the criminals behave? If a criminal realizes, think about that, between criminals, who we don't consider them to be law-abiding citizens, and bad police officers, what do they have in common? The more you let them get away with things, the worse the behavior becomes. And ultimately, yeah, turning off body cameras, turning off the audio. What do you want to bet? I bet he's got a whole list of things that he was probably accused of that never made it into any level of discipline. Could almost guarantee that, because we are all creatures of our behavior. Not creatures of our behavior. What do I say? What is my saying? We are damn, what do I say? I forget what it is that I say. We are creatures of habit. That's what I'm trying to say. Creatures of habit. And I think that this man was a habitual line stepper and habitual sexual harasser. He was probably sexually harassing his wife, which is probably why they ended up in a divorce. And he wanted to take his power that he thought he had out on her. And when she realized, oh, I don't have to accept that. His ex-wife realized, I don't have to accept that. I don't have to deal with that. And what did she try to do? She tried to go to the same police that this man tried to work for, and found out that that's a really, really rocky road to have to try to go through. And didn't get the protection order quick enough. Didn't get the protection that she deserved and her tax dollars paid for quick enough to protect her against her own ex-husband, her kid's father. Now, why he did that to those girls, why did he change his name? Thank you. I don't know. I don't know. But how can you ever do that to those precious babies? It's inexcusable. It's beyond me. And I'll just say this to just end it. Whatever those two were involved in, I'm not sure we'll ever really get the real story. But to those two little angels, they didn't deserve that at all. I'm going to try to find a picture of those babies. That really breaks my heart, man. If everybody, including his estranged ex-wife, would have put these children as priority, I don't think we get here. But I think that just speaks to the level of us being selfish as parents, and we got work to do. So I hope that you guys listen with an open mind as well as an open heart. And to those children, I want to say, young princesses, R.I.P. Thank y'all for listening to this story, okay?